luck. I'm going to try to lay this up in just one piece. It's a little bit dicier way of doing it, but it prevents having any seams, and carbon fiber is fairly accommodating stuff. So let's see how this goes. All right, so the carbon fiber is laid up now. Just giving it a chance to cure. May need to cut that. I went ahead and laid it up in one piece, and it's 2 layers of 3K carbon fiber, clocked 90 degrees to one another, and that'll add a little bit of extra stiffness. It's probably not really needed. It's not a structural part, and more flexible is probably better. I went ahead and stippled it on rather than using the squeegee, and some people have said that helps things, helps compact the fabric a little bit more. But it did work as one piece. It'll be, of course, a challenge to get it out of the mold, given the indentations there around the visor opening. So we'll see how that goes in the morning when I pull it out. But yeah, happy with how it turned out. All right, it's the day after, and it's not quite 24 hours yet, but I did go ahead and pop it off the mold, and it actually released much more easily than I expected. I do have here on the inside some cleanup that I'm going to have to do, because there were a couple of spots where the joint compound pulled off, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of mold repair before I lay up the second hood this evening. But yeah, it did pull off pretty well. There's some waxy residue on the inside, but that's not a problem. And there's some spots that, you know, they're not perfectly clean. Maybe it could have been wet out a little bit more. But yeah, I think it turned out really good. I'll have to do some fill coating, of course, on the exterior, and I've got, you know, a fair bit of trimming, obviously, to do on it as well. But it turned out good. And yeah, it's not all that heavy. I haven't weighed it yet, but tonight I will clean up the mold, re-wax it again, and fix the spots where the sheetrock mold mud pulled off. And then I will lay up the other version of the hood. All right, so I've got the first hood pulled off. You can see there's a little bit of maybe a crack here, but there's some spots up in here where you can see that it pulled one of the layers of sheetrock mud off, so the mud must not have adhered very well between the layers. There's a little, not sure why there's that sort of a dent there. A little mud pulled out in here, somewhere along in there. It's not a big deal, of course, because I'll just pop a little bit more mud in there and throw a little bit more of the wax on there, and lay up the next hood. All right, this is a little bit of a hack, but this is the 2-piece hood. The manhole cover portion I had to do in a couple of different pieces, and then layer over top one larger piece to try to minimize the appearance of the seams. It'll also make that cover just a little bit more stiff, which is a good thing, because it's 2-piece steel. The top piece, the hood itself, I'm going to try as 1 piece. I don't know how well that's going to work. I may have to reinforce it with another piece, but I want that part to be really flexible so that I can do like they do with the wah hood and remove it and just kind of roll it up in the back. So one piece will be more flexible for that, and it'll all get trimmed down to the right shape. So what you see on there right now is not at all the final shape. Alright, so I could leave these on the mold a little bit longer, but I think it's okay to pull them now. The piece up on the top, as I had a feeling, turned out to be much too floppy, but the cockpit surround is good. It's got some good stiffness, especially since there's a bit of extra material in here, though you can't really see it from the back side. There were 3 pieces, a piece here, and a piece there, and there was some overlap here in the center between a couple of the pieces as well. And yeah, it's nice and stiff, and it should work well. It'll need to be reinforced back here, probably some unidirectional back in that area, because that's where the top cockpit piece is going to attach. More of the mud pulled off here, despite having re-waxed the mold last night, so that's definitely an issue. The mold at this point in time is kind of reaching the point where I think if it were used another time that I would probably have to sand it down and refinish it, so it doesn't seem like joint compound works very good for multiple castings off the mold. But now I can pull that out. The top part of the mold, I'll have to do some repair work again, because that does need to get used one more time to make a new hood. But otherwise, it's time to pull all of that out of there and get to work on cleaning up the sides for vinyl. Okay, that was actually much easier than I expected. I thought that when I pulled that plug out that it was going to be really tough to get it out, but it actually pulled right out, and it didn't add any extra damage to it to do that, so that's awesome. It's just the bits that broke off when I pulled off the most recent carbon fiber parts. So now I can just get the flash tape off and on to the next project. I realized I never really did a final update on the Racehood. It's got now two coats of clear coat, an exterior grade clear coat that's I think like a matte or a semi-gloss finish or something, and I'd like to strip those off and do some resanding again, because I'm not totally happy with the sanding job that I did. I got it quite smooth considering that it didn't actually come out of the mold. There's little spots here or there where I could probably fill in with just a tiny bit more epoxy, but I'm not sure it'll make any difference. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to leave it natural carbon or if I'm going to paint it. And if I paint it, then I don't think I need to sand it out any better than it is right now. So this is basically more or less the finished state for the hood. I need to get something on the visor so that it's easier to move it up and down. But yeah, it turned out good. I still want to put on the underside here either some weather stripping or some neoprene on the back of the Racehood. I've got a piece of neoprene that I glued in there to kind of help damp some of the rattling back there. So I think I'll do the same here along the edges, because it does rattle around. Otherwise, it definitely makes a difference in speed based on my testing with a couple of rides. Without the race hood, it's a couple miles an hour slower at my normal cruise.